This three-bean casserole is dumb.
Scooby-Doo-bop-biddy-bop-bop-bop. I'm so sorry, babe. I hadn't tasted him yet.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Looking forward to, you know.
Don't talk about the ingredients. I know. Yeah.
After it's just a surprise for your mouth.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time for a comic book review. Today I'm going to be reviewing X-Men number 20 from Jonathan Hickman, Francesco Mobili, Sonny Go on art. And this is a comic book I've been looking forward to for a long time, ever since I saw the Lionel Francis Hugh cover with the face of Nimrod kind of all distorted and everything. We've been waiting for a follow-up to, was it X-Men 5 or 6? Is one of those. We had back-to-back like amazing X-Men issues in the early run where we had the Children of the Vault stuff, and then we had the revelation that Nimrod wasn't destroyed. You know, when they killed the Mother Mold, he was still coming online because of Dr. Gregor essentially was trying to resurrect her husband. Mystique went on a mission, discovered that when she went to the Forge, the Orcus Forge. Don't want to confuse it with the character. She saw it, witnessed it. She did not take him offline. She just returned back and confirmed it. And we've been waiting, like what, a year and a half, 2 years for them to revisit it. And finally, it's here. And I can tell you this lives up to the hype and then some. This is, the best issue of X-Men probably since around that time. Finally, we're getting some to revisit some of the things in House of X Powers of 10 and that early part of Hickman's run where things were still exciting before it was all about horticulture and I don't know, whatever. There's been some rough patches for X-Men. There's been some extremely high points. Obviously, the Children of the Vault, we just revisited that. That was an excellent story. And this one is even better. It eclipses that. This is a 4.5-star comic, bordering on a 5-star. I think if they had Pepe Larraz as the artist, it would be a 5-star comic. This is the highest recommendation. If you liked House of X Powers of 10, if you were excited in the early days of X-Men and you fell off, you might want to come back and read this comic and get ready for whatever it is that Jonathan Hickman's doing in September. We'll talk about that at the end. But this is a great comic if you were interested in that. If you think that all the mutants are terrible people and you hate the current state of X-Men, it's probably not going to be good for you either way. You probably weren't interested in X-Men from the very get-go with what Jonathan Hickman was doing. And I hear a lot of times, Wes, why do you review these comics? X-Men's in a bad state. Well, I review this stuff because I'm interested in X-Men. And I genuinely get excited when I read a great comic. I get a great amount of joy to review a comic book like this because it's so damn good. I wish we got things like this more often. It's a little bit disappointing that we don't get comic books of this quality all that often anymore. I think maybe the second or third, that last issue of We Live and the first issue of TMNT The Last Ronin, probably the only two comics I've read this year that are better than this. I mean, this is up there. We don't get comics this good all that often. So you have to appreciate it, treasure it, and definitely talk about it because this is good stuff. Now let's get into it. I'm not going to talk about the art. Normally I would do a thing about the art, but there's so much stuff going on in here that I really want to talk about. Francesco's Mobili's art is really good. It would be better if it was Pepe Larraz. These are essentially addressing the things that he helped usher in with Jonathan Hickman, along with R.B. Silva and House of X Powers of 10. And it just feels like such a waste that he's going to be doing planet-size X-Men, Pepe Larraz, and then doing that X-Men series with Jerry Duggan, which is going to be the introduction of the new X-Men team, when he should be doing this, which is addressing all the stuff that Jonathan Hickman built that everyone was excited for that he just forgot for the last year and a half, it seems like. That's what I'll say about that. But the art's really good. But if Pepe Larraz was illustrating this would be like a damn near perfect comic. So let's get into the story. We get this Premission stuff, and a lot of times people criticize Jonathan Hickman as being the idea guy. He's got these big, sweeping, epic ideas, but he doesn't get characterization right. You can't really develop characters. And I'll agree with that to a point. I think he does let the characterization fall kind of by the wayside where he kind of builds up these really big ideas and tries to execute the concepts. But here we get some really good characterization. We actually get characterization of Forge. The entire time I've been reading Dawn of X, now Reign of X, Forge is just a deus ex machina that's there when you go, you know what? I need a suit that allows me to swim underwater, but it needs to be able to, fire depth charges, and I need to also be able to fly. Go talk to Forge. He built that last week. And then you talk to Forge and he gives you your suit or whatever. And here we get an actual conversation between Mystique and Forge. Now she is going to Forge looking for a weapon that is very powerful. And it turns out it's going to be like a matter antimatter collider, something that would create like a black hole. And she's going to use it to go attack the Orcus Forge that's still in orbit, that she knows they're trying to bring Nimrod online. But they're talking, and she's like, how do you sleep at night? He's like, I sleep well. You look at this stick, and this could be used for many things. It could be a tool for a lot of things. You could make it into a weapon. You could use it to do anything. But the power is in the person that wields it. I'm just the inventor, and I've made a lot of weapons. Whether they're used for good or bad depends on whose hands they end up in. It's not his fault. But he does see that in his mind, humans, almost everything evil that's been created had the best intentions. Humans always had the best intentions, but they end up hurting everyone, including mutants. So he's going to fight fire with fire, and he's good with it. But he also does say, like, the worst weapon he ever built was the one, like his gun that turned mutants into humans, like took away their X gene kind of thing. And it was a good revelatory moment and good characterization on Forge on why he's doing all the things that he's doing. And I really enjoyed that. We also got some pretty good characterization on Mystique, on what she's thinking. And she's having I wouldn't call it a crisis of conscience, but she knows she's going to have to do something drastic if she's ever going to get Destiny back, her wife. And then we also get some more good characterization on Charles and Magneto. And these guys are just the scum of the earth. They are such scumbags. They know they have no intention of ever bringing her wife back. And then when she tells them the weapon that she's had Forge made, which is essentially it's like a grenade bomb type thing that's going to create a black hole and destroy this space station. And this is what Charles has to say. It's possible that up to this point, we've overmanaged the job. As you're the one executing it, perhaps we should leave the details of the mission up to you. Basically saying, we'd like to have our hands clean of this. We don't want to have to take any responsibility for what you're about to do, because you're going to go up there, obviously taking Nimrod offline, destroying the Orcus Forge. You're going to kill a lot of humans, which is in direct violation, I believe, of the first rule of Krakoa. And it feels like if she's successful, they're probably going to screw her over in the end, probably send her down in the pits of Krakoa with Sabretooth. And then we get this last conversation as she dons the suit of someone that's working on the space station. And she says, when I return successful, you will have my wife move to the front of the resurrection queue. And they say, of course. Like Eric said, we made a deal. Only your failure prevents its completion. This is a bold-faced lie. They are absolutely using this person, sending her into harm's way, allowing her to kill humans, break the first rule. They have no intention of ever coming through and giving her what they've agreed to. Mystique is never going to see her wife again as long as they have anything to say about it. And they're the leaders of Krakoa. They have all the power. What complete scumbags. They are absolutely the villains in this comic book. I'm rooting for Mystique in this one, I'll tell you that. One of the interesting things going on here when we get back up to the Orcus Forge is essentially Dr. Gregor is doing the exact same thing for her husband Erasmus that Mystique once done for Destiny. She's resurrecting him. Now humans have resurrection. Her husband's not being resurrected as a human. He's being resurrected. Is he an android? Is he a cyborg? I don't know if there's anything. Like, I don't think his brain is in there, but somehow she's got his conscience into these crystals. So I think he's purely a robot, but there's an essence of humanity. Like the essence of her husband, or perhaps you could call it a soul. I would say not a soul, but there's something there of her husband that remains that she's placing into this robot. And we see the resurrection process, and you can see the look on her face. She finally gets her husband back. She's crying tears of joy as Nimrod is born. And I feel strange. She's like, yeah, I know, and you're confused. And then he starts remembering, I died. Like, you cried tears. I know everything that happened. And kind of, you brought me back. And he mentions that we wanted children. I'll never be able to give you children. And she's like, that's that's fine. I just wanted you back. And then all of a sudden, almost immediately, he starts realizing he's got all these capabilities, all this potential just sitting inside of his body now, the things that he could do. This is how he describes it. This body is a wonder. I'm analyzing its capabilities and the things I'll be able to do: duplication, energy absorption, weapon systems, tactical databases. I'm more than I was. And then he starts talking about the child thing that I mentioned before. And I guess there are different parts of him at this point where he needs to start duplicating throughout the body of Nimrod. So her husband's essence, I guess, is on all of it. But Mystique kind of screws all this up because she's actually witnessing this. She's one of the workers on the forge that sees this happening. Nimrod immediately recognizes and says, "That's a mutant." And then she turns back into her Mystique form. She starts firing back, and we get this mayhem that's happening on the ship or on the space station. And this body is all new to Nimrod. He doesn't know exactly what he's doing, but he starts duplicating himself. One body, I believe it's the original, with her husband still in it, Erasmus, to take care of this bomb that's been deployed. Another duplicate to kind of chase down Mystique. And I think there's two of them out there. And things are happening, and Mystique is kind of running away. Obviously, things aren't going her way. And we have Nimrod as Erasmus. "I'm so sorry for what I'm about to do." And he kind of claims, like, "I got this second life to save you again," kind of thing. And he, the part of Nimrod that's Erasmus, that's in the original, grabs the bomb, I guess jumps out of the space station, so it detonates away from the forge and explodes and kills her husband all over again. And there's no way to bring him back now. That's it. But the duplicate remains. And once again, the X-Men are their very own worst enemies. They've gone out there, and as soon as this Nimrod is born and Erasmus is resurrected, they didn't do it earlier. I don't know why it took them this long, but according to Forge, it only took him like a few days to make that bomb. And they've destroyed the only sense of humanity that was within Nimrod to begin with. There was a part of that robot that was Erasmus, that was resurrected. Kind of like what's going on in Krakoa. We think things may be happening and maybe some things are lost in the resurrection process. The humans have a resurrection process here. But Mystique and the mutants on Krakoa have destroyed that almost immediately. And the only thing left is this machine that has all this wonderful capability and not a sense of humanity on maybe when to use it, and how to protect people and all that stuff. And she's like looking at him, and she asks, "Are you in there?" saying, "Erasmus, are you still in Nimrod?" And Nimrod replies, "Dr. Gregor, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to tell you." And she knows it in her eyes, and you see her crying tears. She's lost her husband again, and this time there's no coming back. Essentially, Mystique, not only did she destroy whatever piece of humanity might have been in Nimrod that would have kept him from taking over the entire world, but she's also destroyed Dr. Gregor's husband. Mystique wants Charles and Magneto to resurrect her wife because she wants to be with her again. Yet when she goes up to the forge, she takes that very thing away from Gregor. And I remember when I was reading this before, I thought she was completely motivated by revenge. I thought, oh my goodness, this Dr. Gregor is going to be diabolical. She's purely motivated out of revenge. But it's clear when you read this, she was motivated by love. The exact same thing that's motivating Mystique at this very moment. So the position of Mystique going to the forge and taking away the very thing that Charles and Magneto refused to give her without, success. And we know even if she is successful, she'll never get it. And her going and making someone else feel that exact same way is very powerful. Really good stuff. That's one of the things that Hickman probably doesn't get enough credit for. He's really good at themes and playing them throughout stories. When he delivers on them and they hit home, they hit really hard. As you can imagine, things do not go well for Mystique. She's trying to jump back through the Great Gate to Krakoa. The duplicate, which I guess is now the main Nimrod, kind of disintegrates her on the way through. She makes it through the gate and dies almost immediately. And then we kind of get the end results, like the aftermath of all this. We get Omega Sentinel and Dr. Devo, who we haven't seen in a very long time, kind of laughing about all this. You know, what kind of losses did we suffer? Is what Dr. Devo's asking Omega Sentinel. And she's like, there's no losses. And he's laughing and laughing. And they do discuss that Dr. Gregor is like in shock. You know, she lost her husband again. And Dr. Devo says, they hate us and we hate them. That's the current state of mutant in man. But all their arrogance, the bravado, the bold declarations of inevitability. Don't you see, Omega? Those words are in conflict with their actions. It's obvious, isn't it? They don't hate us. They fear us. After that, we get the resurrection of Mystique. They ask her, were you successful? And she says, you re-uploaded my mind. You know what happened. And they say, we want to hear it from your mouth. We want to hear you tell us. And she said, I failed. Nimrod's still online. I wasn't able to stop. And then she says, what about Irene? What about my wife? Charles Xavier, just the villainous scum that he is. What about her? You meant nothing to us. Your wife means nothing to us. The only thing that meant anything to us was the mission. You failed. You get nothing. And we will treat you like dirt. And then at the end of the comic book, they're talking about they're going to have to deploy something. Something big is going to happen. And we finally see Moira X back again. And they're also playing some of the words between like that Mask of Destiny and Mystique when they had that conversation underneath the island. And she said, if they refuse to bring me back, burn it all to the ground. You know, bring me back. And if they won't, burn it all to the ground. And then at the very end, we don't get much with Moira X other than an acknowledgement that she's there. We get this graphic, This Fall Inferno. My assumption, and what I'm being told, is that is the name of Jonathan Hickman's upcoming series that's starting in September. I imagine it's going to deal with the fallout of Nimrod coming online, Mystique's failure, and still wanting her wife to come back, and whether or not she's going to be able to burn Krakoa to the ground. My assumption, and I believe we're actually going to get the details of this later today, probably even before this review comes up, is that Francesco Mobili will be the artist. Again, like I said earlier, this is the Pepe the Raz show. This should be the Pepe the Raz series with Jonathan Hickman. He should not be on that X-Men #1. That should be the Francesco Mobili show. And I think it's disappointing that they don't understand the importance of Pepe the Raz and R.B. Silva's roles in the popularity of House of X Powers of 10 and how much they set up X-Men for success, at least initially, during Dawn of X. That's too bad. He should be working on this series, but I'm absolutely excited about this. When Jonathan Hickman does X-Men right, I'm still excited for it. As many bad comics that I've had to read in Dawn of X and Reign of X, when he does this right and he finally revisits the stuff that was exciting 2 years ago, it's still exciting. I still want to see this story. It's disappointing that he slow-rolled this so badly that we only get these things in bits and pieces. I mean, how many times have we seen Moira X since Dawn of X started? A handful, maybe 2 or 3. We've been waiting for the follow-up to that amazing Mystique issue for like a year and a half. It's too long, but when it happens, it is still great. So this is a really good comic book. If you enjoyed the House of X Powers of 10, if you enjoyed the initial issues of X-Men when it felt like Jonathan Hickman was doing something important and something big, and then he just kind of stopped, this is probably your jumping back on point. Read this comic book. Skip Hellfire Gala, fuck that, and then get ready for the Jonathan Hickman Inferno series in September, because it's clear that he's going to be tackling Moira X. He's going to be tackling Nimrod. He's going to be tackling the Mystique Destiny story arc and what Charles and Magneto are doing and how evil it really is if you think about it. So that's my review of X-Men #20. Jonathan Hickman, Francesco Mobili, Sunny Go. Excellent issue, highest recommendation. If the art was Pepe the Raz, it'd be a 5-star. There's not anything bad about this. Almost everything is great. This is why we read comic books. This is why I stick around with X-Men. This is why when some people say, you're wasting your time, Wes, you're just a pawn for Marvel Comics. Listen, I read a lot of comics. I read a lot of good comics, more good comics than I read bad comics. but there aren't a lot of great comics out here. So when I finally get one, this is why I stick around, because I've been waiting for this follow-up to Nimrod. It took too long, but now that it's here, this is amazing, and this is a great comic book.